Hey guys, today's video is assembling the Forgeworld Xiphon Interceptor. So my previous video was on the unboxing. We're now moving into the assembly. And I'm running this at double speed so that you haven't got to put up with me doing this at normal speed. But I'll be pointing out exactly how the process goes. So all the parts have all been cleaned up and just test fitting each component as we go through. We can see here, I think I mentioned this in the unboxing, that the two parts of those side pods are slightly splayed and need some hot water treatment, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. So just sort of working through, making sure that I'm happy with how it's all going to go together. And we can see here, what I'm doing here is using the needle file, or this particular flat file, just to sort of score and clean out where all the glue connections are going to go. So this sort of keys and roughs up the edge so it's not completely smooth resin, makes it a little bit easier. And we can see just inside on there, just by the keyed part to the engine there, there is some residue resin that's in there, so just cleaning that up with a scalpel just so that the engine goes in nice and easy. But yeah, it's important to sort of rough the edges up so that you're not going on a smooth to smooth surface with the glue. So I always make sure that I sort of rough up or scuff up or even cut slightly into each of the adjoining parts with the scalpel and with a file of some kind. Just gives the glue something a bit better to bind to than those flat resin to resin parts. Just makes it a little bit easier. So there's a couple of parts that just sort of stick out, and you kind of think that you've cleaned up the model, but you know, it always comes down to it that you just haven't completely done it. But yeah, here we go, just roughing up that engine component here just to make sure that the glue binds a little bit better. So the first thing we're doing here is just putting the engines on and the engine intakes, and then I'll apply a clamp to those just to save my hands from holding the parts to dry. Now each of the side pods and the engine intakes are keyed with a left and right indicator, so there is an R and a L sort of scribed into the resin, so you can't get those wrong. And just make sure that the lights or the LEDs or whatever you want to call them at the bottom of those engine intakes are pointing downwards. And downwards is indicated by the fact that that's where the landing gear goes. So make sure you've got your wings the right way around and the side pods the right way around, and you're good to go. So just moving on to the second side pod then, so just putting in the rear engine and then onto the engine intake. Nice and simple, sort of rinse and repeat process. Trying to show to the camera there the left and right part. It's a bit difficult to sort of see. You might be able to zoom in and have a look. But yeah, as before, each of the sort of parts is scored or cleaned up with a needle file just to sort of rough up those edges, give the glue something to bind to. As you can see, I am using Gorilla Super Glue, which is like a gel, thick gel, and I find that's really good for Forgeworld parts of this scale. So as with the other one, just using a clamp here. These are sort of cheap £1 clamps, nice and easily available from most hardware stores. And then we move on to the central fuselage, so sort of just roughing up those sides as well, because that's where a big glue point for the side pods to attach to the main fuselage. And what I'm doing here is just lightly scoring into each of the sides there, so the glue will sort of seep into those cracks, and as it sort of dries, just gives a better bonded surface. Because I'm not pinning this particular model, I don't see the need for it. There's no sort of excess weight or anything like that, so I've avoided doing any pinning on this. It's pure glue and just rubbing up the surfaces nicely. Central fuselage then has a rear engine, so that makes the third engine of the model, as per the unboxing. And as per the unboxing, you know, the Chaos one probably needs that third engine because it is 20 inches faster in game. Again, just applying a clamp here just to press that in and make sure that all goes off nice and easy. So while that's all gluing then, we can move on to applying the nose las cannons. There's two pairs of twin las cannons. And you need to attach those before you attach the nose cone, otherwise the las cannons won't fit in. And they fit in nice and easy there. I'd rather have potentially left those off before I paint them, but it's a bit difficult to fully assemble the model. And in my opinion, you need to attach the nose cone to the fuselage, otherwise you're going to end up with a nasty join mark if you paint it separately and then add it on afterwards. So that's the reason I've done that. So just trying to fit in the front foot. I've put all the feet in the raised position on this one. It's a little bit of a tight fit, so I'm having to trim this one down to make sure that it fits in the little hole. But yeah, it's a little bit of a snug fit, so just sort of trimming it down, making sure that it slides in. The other two aren't so bad, it was just the front ones that I found were a bit of a tight fit, so I've had to sort of scrape off a little bit of extra resin here just to get it into the gap. There we go, that's going to go in now, so that's fine. We can set the glue up in that one. And there we go, the front nose foot is in. But if you do want to put the feet down, there are three landing gears in the lowered position, and you simply do exactly the same as what we're doing here. It's just they've already got sort of the pistony part, and you can just put that into a landed position. But obviously mine are all going to be flying around the battlefield, or destroyed, one or the other, so they're all going to be in the raised position. So each of the side pods then also has landing gear, and as with the nose cone one, they're in the raised position, and they fit in a lot better than the front nose one. There we go, just that's all sorted out, so just retest fitting those side pods, making sure that they're going to go on nice and snug, no big gaps and no extra cleaning up. And we can go straight on to gluing those. So plenty of super glue, making sure that it's not going to seep out the sides though. And putting both of these on at the same time, I can then apply 2 clamps to hold those in position. Just like this. You probably could get away with 1 clamp, but it's probably going to end up with a better flush fit if you go with 2, just in case sort of one end sort of pulls itself away from the torso, from the main body, sorry. And then just set that aside to dry. A couple of hours later then, that's all dried, we can just move straight onto the wings. So just test fitting those wings, making sure there's no problems there. And exactly as before, just sort of roughing up where the main glue point is. And they are keyed left and right, so the wings do sort of drop down slightly in a aggressive style rather than sort of tilted up. And now just stick the glue in and we can attach the wings. Now unfortunately I don't have a clamp wide enough to have held these, so I did have to hold these the old fashioned way and just sit there for sort of 20 minutes by holding that position. But once we were done, that had all set, that was fine. We could move on to the second wing and rinse and repeat and get that done as well. It's exactly the same, just sort of scuff up the joining parts with a scalpel and a needle file and we're good to go. At this stage we can now attach the stabiliser fin that goes along the top. Again, that's all been roughed up already, and we can just attach that nice and easy. It does sort of almost click in, it's like a couple of little raised edges either side of where that stabiliser fin goes, just to sort of guide you in the right position. At the bottom is the Xiphon missile battery. It looks like it's on some kind of rotating mechanism, so there's a couple of little points that sort of make sure that it looks like it rotates through the bomb bay, as it were. And it doesn't attach flush to the bottom, it attaches on those sort of raised angled side points, which I've sort of pointed out there, and then just line up the sort of the holder, the rotatey part of the missile magazine almost, and then just hold that in place and let that go off. So you can see a little bit more clearly here that those side pod lighting systems at the front of the vehicle are not flush with the side body. So the next process is to take the whole kit down to the kitchen, get the kettle on the boil, and then apply some hot water treatment, and then sort of manoeuvre and adjust those side fins, as it were, so that they fit flush with the body. But before we do that, we can just clean up the pilot and get the pilot ready to go. Not sure whether I'm going to use the pilot when it comes to painting, or whether I'm going to go with sort of an opaque canopy paint job. But all my other flyers have always painted the pilot, so I probably will elect to do it. Just depends how I feel a bit later on when it gets to that painting phase. Now he's got two arms, one sort of holding the joystick, as it were, the flying column, and then another one on the throttle, I guess. They're a bit fiddly to attach to the body, and then making sure that once you've attached the arms, that they do actually go into the right parts of the nose cone, where the receiver of the control stick and the throttle cable kind of go inside the nose cone. So once the pilot's arms are on, just sort of holding his legs on rather than actually gluing them, just to make sure that when it comes to putting the pilot into the cockpit, he will fit. So I'll put the legs in first and then put the torso with the arms on, just making sure here that the two arms do line up with the right parts on the control surfaces. And just fine-tuning that one arm just down a little bit before it completely dries on me. And that seemed to be in the right place, just about there. So I've now been and applied the hot water treatment, the boiling water, to those side parts, and they've just sort of moved about 2 or 3 millimeters inwards, which means they're going to get a nice snug fit against the front part of the cockpit and the nose cone. Just get some glue on there then, and then we can push that in. And what I'll do here is just apply a clamp again to those 2 bits that we just gave the hot water treatment, just to make sure they hold in, and then we can just leave that to dry. And there we go. The Xiphon fighter is pretty much complete, ready for painting. Just making sure the canopy fits, which it does. So all that's left to do then is apply some green stuff to any gaps. But in the meantime, I have assembled my full air wing detachment for that +1 command point. These will rock in at 660 points for the 3, for that extra command point. Might be used in slightly bigger games rather than a standard sort of 2000 pointish type game. We'll see when that time comes. So there we go, Xiphon fighters are now built, ready for painting. And that will be happening as soon as I get back into my man cave proper, which hopefully could be a week or so's time. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I shall catch you on the next video.